Good morning, everyone. Welcome guests and individuals, staff. At this time, I'll call the Crow Wing County Regular Board meeting for July 27th, 2021 to order. If you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we'll have open forum, so anyone who wishes to speak will have 3 minutes to speak on any subject other than what's on our published agenda. So is there anyone who would wish to speak at this time? Good morning, sir. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. My name is Chad Connor. I'm a land surveyor with Widseth. I'm representing the plat of Barbour Road Estates that came before this board at your last meeting. I apologize we were not able to attend the meeting, and I feel like we could have answered some questions as I understand there was discussion about the private roadway. Understand that the county board at this point has tabled the application due to concerns over the private roadway, and I guess I am here today to kind of go over a couple of things. You know, the application, the development met or exceeded all ordinances which currently allow for private roads. You know, the road has been constructed, as I'm sure you're all aware. It's constructed with a bituminous surface, and I understand also talking with the county engineer that you guys are going to be meeting on future design considerations, and we support that. And just we're kind of caught in an unfortunate time period with this, and hope that maybe you know, we could move forward. I'm not sure exactly how we get back on this agenda. I kind of had anticipated that we'd be here today for approval, so I'd entertain any questions, I guess, but you know, we'd just like to reiterate our desire to have that move forward for approval, or if you have other questions of me, we'd be glad to answer those.
I can speak to you that simply that it'll come up on one of our next meetings. You should speak with Mr. Houle, the administrator, to make sure that it gets on the agenda, but that it will reappear at some point, but you'll have to work with him to get that on the agenda.
Yeah, I've been working with the engineer and the county planner on that, but neither of them recommended that we reach out to Mr. Houle, so I guess if that's the appropriate method, we can sure do that.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Anyone else that would like to speak during open forum? Hearing none, seeing none, we'll move on. Review and approve the minutes from July 13th, 2021, the regular county meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Coring.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Brecken. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those not in favor say nay. It's interesting as we sit here, because I'm so used to having roll call in the past that I get confused on which direction I'm going now, but we're all seated, so today it'll just be a voice.
There's no birds tweeting either.
Right. So that motion passes. Number 4 is the review and approve the current agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Coring. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those not in favor signify by saying nay. That motion passes. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Franzine,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Brecken. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Not in favor, say aye, say nay. That motion passes. We're going to move on to number 6, which is our MICA staff are here today to give us an update. Mr. Massman.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Matt Mossman, Executive Director of the Minnesota Intercounty Association. So to start, just thank you for your, we always, first of all, appreciate being up here in Crow Wing County. I hope that you all get something out of this, because we do certainly enjoy getting out of the office and around the state to the member counties. And not only presenting what the successes were and in some cases what didn't happen in the legislative session, but also hearing from you as to what you see as the priorities now as we look forward to the 2022 session. I also want to thank yourself, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Barrows, and Commissioner Franzine for your service on the MICA board, and Administrator Hool. We just have a fantastic time working with all of you and really appreciate your guidance and leadership to the organization. So we have a slideshow. With me is the rest of the team from the MICA lobby team that'll also be sharing in the presentation. I'll give some highlights if we go to the next slide. This, first of all, was the continuation of 18 months, really, of unique legislative session, particularly unique setting a biennial budget in an entirely remote setting, and just, I think, a tribute to the relationships that folks in our team have built over many years with legislators to be able to have that connection in order to be effective in a situation where it really has to be a phone call or an email or some sort of outreach and you're not running into people in the hallway, which is pretty typical. I think a really successful year for counties, all things considered. The legislature passed a $52.2 billion biennial budget, which for those who are interested in that sort of thing, it's a 9.4% increase over the 2021 spending amount and 3.4% over the baseline. I point that out because in the end of the day, we are still the only politically party-divided legislature in the country, and there's something about $1.7 billion of surplus and $2.8 billion of federal money that ends up helping to smooth the path to compromise, along with, I think, some really effective personalities at the table in Governor Walz, Majority Leader Gazelka, and Speaker Hortman in terms of just getting it done and staying at the table to reach compromise. In the end of the day, a lot of contentious policy issues did go by the wayside, but I think by and large also, I think for counties, really a built-up reservoir of goodwill with the legislature that boded well for us because of how counties so effectively use their CARES Act money, and we're such strong partners with the state throughout the pandemic in terms of managing the public health crisis. So I think that bodes really well for us. This just gives you a snapshot. You can see that the budget there, if you focus on the blue in the middle, the tax revenue changes and the net spending changes, about $746 million of revenue cuts. Those were mostly one-time related to federal conformity around PPP loans and unemployment insurance benefits being accepted from taxation for 2020, and then little south of $1.6 billion in increased spending. And then you can see where it is, and we'll talk about a number of the specifics for counties. If we go to the next slide. Thank you for the help with the slides.
You do have a
Matt,
clicker there too.
Oh,
if
I
you
have
wanna
a
use
clicker.
it.
Here we go.
But either way, I can do it too.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So just to highlight a couple of things, and I should point out that we provided you in addition to the PowerPoint. If you don't have it in front of you, we can make sure you get a copy, but we have a 40 or so page summary of literally just the things that are mostly related to counties that happened in the budget. So that gives you a sense of how much goes on in a biennial budget setting year. So we will just some of the highlights. There was $20 million. There was no change to county program aid. So county program aid held harmless, which I think was an important success. And I know that I would like to talk to the MICA board about having a conversation with the legislature about increasing that next year. So that's an interim project. But $20 million, that'll be roughly a little north of $500,000 probably over the 6 years, starting in 2023. For Crow Wing, for homeless prevention aid. And this new aid program is focused on youth homelessness, individuals who are more at a school age level and families with school age children to make sure that there's housing stability, access to education stability at a really critical time in their life. For those of you, this is more or less a county budget thing and just following things that your constituents will be interested in. There was a state general property tax cut for businesses of about $20 million annually, and that's achieved by increasing the value exclusion from $100,000 to $150,000 of value will no longer be taxed to that. So it'll help all businesses, but small businesses in particular. And then for veterans, veterans will get higher either renter refunds or homeowner refunds by virtue of the fact that the payments for their disability benefits will no longer be included in their calculation of household income, so they'll be eligible for higher refunds. Broadband, huge priority for MICA that we promoted during the legislative session. In the end of the day, this number went back and forth. We were hoping for $120 million. The number was as low as $30 million at times, and we landed at $70 million, which is the most for the 2 years that we've received in a state grant appropriation, so $35 million a year. And then a couple things, again, that don't hit county budgets directly, but I want you to know about them because they may be something that you have in the back of your mind as you're thinking about your federal ARP monies and how they're used. One is there was a lot of conversation during the legislative session. The House had proposed legislation to retroactively require employers to provide up to 80 hours of paid sick leave for COVID-related reasons back to March of last year. That did not happen, but what did happen is an agreement to put $250 million of the state's federal ARP money into a set-aside for frontline worker pay. There's now a 9-member panel that is put in place to make recommendations to the legislature and governor as to how that gets allocated. They're expected to make their recommendations by September 6th, and then there's fully expected to be a special session to actually enact that. So we are looking forward to at least one more special session, not because we have to take this up, and then we'll also hope to take up a bonding bill, and we'll talk about that later. Then there is also $150 million. At one point, the House had a tax bill proposal to give more money to counties to distribute to COVID recovery grants. That did not happen, but the House did put $150 million into additional help for businesses around the state who were impacted by the COVID crisis. $80 million of that is through a loan program, and $70 million is through additional grants. And then, like I said, no bonding bill yet, but we continue to advocate for one coming up here in September. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Novak to talk about transportation highlights.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Always good to be in Crow Wing County. I've been enjoying all of your many positive attributes the last few days over at Craigan's, so I'm glad you're one of our members. Enjoy coming up here. Let me get right to it on transportation. In terms of the regular budget, regular session, of course, transportation, like most other items, did not get completed. We had to go into special session and finish up the end of June. In that context, one of the highlights of the transportation funding bill, which was allocated about $200 million in one-time money mostly, was an additional $14 million for the local bridge replacement program and $5.5 million in additional money for the local road program, county roads and bridges. I think the thing to keep in mind is that comes on top of what was a significant investment made by the legislature in the 4th special session last October. So within about a 6-month period of time, we've added just under $50 million for local bridges and around $75 million for local roads. Putting that in context over about a 20-year cycle, I can tell you that that is a significant amount of money for those two processes, and very welcome, I think, by county governments around the state. Then moving on, inside most counties like yours, you've got a significant number of townships and what we call small cities, and they got a significant amount of money, again, in a 20-year cycle. Really, this was a high point. $12 million was added for township roads, $18 million for small city streets. So I think the combination of all those things really did move transportation at the local level forward pretty significantly here in the last 6 months. Something else that may be of note for you is they put in $2.6 million for each of the next 2 years to guarantee that all the driver's license exam stations in the state that had to close because of COVID will be reopened. So the money is there for that to take place. A few other real quick notes on additional transportation money that just kind of worked its way around the state. There was $5 million in one-time money for safe routes to schools. $5 million was added into what they call active grants, which is transportation-related things to bicycle routes, trails of different types, essentially pedestrian infrastructure. And then also $7.4 million each of the next 2 years for school bus stop arm camera grants. A number of things being done in the last couple of years to try to increase the safety around the various places in the state that school buses pick up kids. Then we go to probably the highlight of the package, which was a significant addition of trunk highway bonds, $113 million, and $31 million in just general funds, one-time money, depending on your point of view, earmarked or constituent requests. There was quite a debate between Scott Newman, the chair of the Senate, and MnDOT in the House over whether or not official earmarks should come back into play. And I think officially they probably didn't, but unofficially as constituent requests, they effectively did. And a number of highways will benefit from that over the next 2 years. There were a few selected policy changes in the transportation area. One of them was to eliminate residency for if the time comes that you need to hire a new county engineer. Your search can go beyond Crow Wing County if you choose to do that. This was an effort that started way up in northwestern Minnesota, where they had a dearth of candidates, you might say, and wanted to open the market up to neighboring states like North and South Dakota, and that was approved. Something else that was made official and the language was tightened up that was a MICA priority over the last couple of years is oftentimes you would hear a number like I just gave you, $14 million in local bridge replacement. Sometimes that number might have been announced as 75, 80, $90 million, and it looks like we're going to get a lot of money for local bridges. Then you get into the fine print and you find out that maybe 60 of the 80 is going to one big bridge project in St. Paul or Minneapolis. So we put a cap on that of no more than $7 million for any particular project can come out of the statewide local bridge funding. And that will be very good, I think, for a county like Crow Wing, because it will allow more money to be spent and dispersed around the state for county bridges. Then the last thing I'll mention in that area is that there's a requirement in the bill now for a, quote, transportation project selection process to be implemented. This was another big philosophical fight that's gone on for the last 5 years with Senator Newman versus MnDOT and essentially the House on how much power MnDOT should have to utilize their selection processes for which projects get work done. There's been a big effort on the part of the Senate to open that up more to what they call constituent requests, which is, you know, numbers of people in a particular part of the state might be rallying and organizing over a period of years, sometimes decades, to get a particular highway fixed. Never quite seems to make it to the top of the line. This goes on for a long, long time. People get frustrated. That's the problem they're trying to solve. They will be discussing it in committee next January when we go back in, or first week of February. And it's because of this fight that occurred. As was mentioned earlier by Matt, we worked very hard hoping to get a bonding bill at the end of this session. It's not a bonding year, but there's pent-up projects and lots of different subject areas that need to be met. And so there is some hope that there'll be a special session in September and a bonding bill might be created. If not, of course, the regular bonding cycle is in the even-numbered years, and we will be dealing with bonding next year. And bonding is one of a couple things that, in terms of what didn't get done, we didn't get a bonding bill. And our organization, for quite a long time, has been joined together with other transportation-related organizations, trying to get improvement in the constitutionally based revenue sources like gas tax, tab fees, whatever. And of course, that did not happen and has not happened very often. 1988 was the last gas tax that was passed until 2008. So there's really only been one gas tax increase in the last 30 years in Minnesota, which I think is something most people don't know or understand. And that's been the bread and butter of the resources for road and bridge funding in Minnesota since we've had cars. So that may be changing because of electric cars and global warming, but at this moment in time, it's still true, and so that debate will go forward. With that, I would conclude, Mr. Chair, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Coring has a question for you.
Thanks, Steve. I like the report. I've actually got a township bridge that I'd like to get funded, and I actually talked to the county engineer. So my question on this, and if you don't have the answer to it, so that 14 million for local bridges, is that just like distributed evenly, or is it a pot that is applied for? Where you?
Well, that's a good question, and the way it works is there's a unit inside MnDOT that basically functions as the director of those monies. There's a system that was developed many years ago that provides for input from county governments around the state. People like myself also sit in those meetings. I don't have a vote, but I can have dialogue with them. It's been an ongoing process of selecting the projects that are next in line, but for the money. So at a local level, they're basically engineered. These projects are ready to go, but for the money. And they had a new study on developing projects and redoing the ones that had sat there for a long time without getting money. And they had over 450 requests around the state. There's a major pent-up demand for county road and bridge work. These funds are critical to that. There's never been enough money to do the projects that are in the line. When one gets done, a new one moves up. There's been very little controversy about it. I think county governments around the state have felt good about the process, feel like they've had good input. We have county engineers and other people who participate in this process, and that's the way it works.
It seems like it's kind of a teaser amount, because we just did a bridge in my district, and the culverts, and I think it was $700,000. So if you think about it, $14 million, even if every project was $700,000, that isn't going to go very far with 87 counties. But I guess it's better than nothing.
Well, since you served, and I've served, I'll tell you what the problem is.
Yeah.
And we didn't used to have it in our day, back in the days when we had people like Senator Langseth and so forth.
Yeah.
We don't have those kind of specific advocates for county road and bridges who are willing to stand up and caucus when nobody else is around. You know, you and I know what that's like. And it's important to have those advocates. In the last couple of years, I know I've personally been involved trying to search, find, and develop a few members, both parties, both houses, who are willing to stand up and make that their number one priority. Everybody loves roads and bridges. Everybody's for funding them. But if you can envision a big funnel, you know, at the beginning of the session, all the issues get dumped into the big end of the funnel. The trick is to come out the small end at the end and actually get the money. And so we always get some money, but we never get the payoff we're really looking for.
Right.
And one of the main reasons is I don't know how the legislature has evolved in recent years, but we just don't have the advocates who are willing to put it all on the line. You know, we get a lot of support, we always get some money, but I think the main reason why we don't get the big payoff is because we don't have anybody willing to take a punch in a caucus when it counts at the end of the session.
Yeah. You're right, Steve. You're right.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Ms. Zaleski.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Nancy Selesky, and I handle both public health and human services for MICA, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning, and I always come overloaded. So I look at my one slide here, and I think, yeah, there's 20 pages in the 40-page report that relates to human services. It would not fit on the slide deck, so I will follow it, but just so you know, there's a lot of material in the written report. It was a really good year for public health, of course. Nothing like a good pandemic to get everyone's attention. The legislature invested $15 million increase in the local public health grant. That's something that hasn't been increased for a very long time, and I think it was about a 30% increase. They also put $15 million into a new infrastructure system related to public health. They put $8 million per biennium into tobacco and vaping prevention, and they increased home visiting grants by $3 million in the first biennium and $1.5 million in the next. It's basically 3 years at $1.5 million. So good news for public health. The other thing I would just mention is at one point there was a proposal on the Senate side to reduce the statewide health improvement program, the SHIP program. That did not pass, so that was also good news for public health. In terms of human services, a number of our priorities were addressed. One of the first ones was the accounting error that came out of DHS that related to IMDs, and it was a cost to counties of about $8.3 million. They did fund that, and counties are made whole as a result of that, as well as there was an error relating to the tribal nations, and that also was funded. As you all know, we're doing these kinds of meetings a lot differently. It's a pleasure to be in person with all of you, of course, but we've been working through Zoom and technology, and as a result, there were a number of waivers that had been granted by DHS to allow counties and other entities to do their work. We came forward with a waiver bill to make some of these waivers permanent, and our bill did pass, and I'm just going to tell you there's 4 components in that bill. It allows for targeted case management to be used through telehealth. It allows MnChoice's reassessments to be done remotely if everyone agrees that that's the right thing to do. It also modifies the housing support absent days. These are people that are living in a facility where they receive supports. In the event that they're ill and need to have some sort of treatment, COVID treatment or mental health, chemical dependency treatment, they can now leave that facility for up to 92 days and be assured that they have a home when they are finished with their treatment. Also, MFIP applications can be taken remotely. And then during the regular session in the policy bill, there was language that allows for 5 days, up to 5 days, for a face-to-face visit with a child that's in the child protection system if it's confirmed that that child is not in any direct contact with the alleged offender. So that also passed earlier in the session. And if you look at the report, there's literally dozens of other waivers that have been extended permanently, and that's related to telehealth, so you'll see that as well. They also made some investments in mental health, which is much needed. The Adult Mental Health Initiative grant was increased by $3.5 million for the first biennium and $1.75 for the second. They also put $5 million into a new program, and it basically is intended to create a children's mental health transition and support team to facilitate the transition for kids that have been in psychiatric facilities or the Child and Adolescent Behavioral Health Hospital, the CABS facility at Wilmer. That language is also passed, and the funding passed for that. And also, I want to mention that there were rate increases for individuals that work in the ICFDD facilities, PCAs, and other home health workers did get an increase this year. Unfortunately, we did pick up one county cost shift. This was in the governor's budget recommendation, and unfortunately the legislature agreed to it. And it relates again to that child and adolescent behavioral facility in Wilmer, the CABS facility. When a child no longer needs that level of care and is awaiting a bed in the community, we pay 100% of the cost for that child that remains at the facility until that bed is found. And that is a cost to the counties of about $2.4 million for the biennium. So that brings us in line, all the direct care and treatment facilities in line where we do, as these folks don't need that level of care, the cost shifts to us. We have had numerous meetings and continue to meet monthly, actually, with the direct care and treatment team in trying to bring, trying to assure that we can find some alternative settings for these people. We don't want them sitting in a facility where they don't need to be. So that is an ongoing conversation. Another thing that they were able to come to an agreement on at the end was the eviction moratorium. At the end of the session, it was signed. There's a 105-day period of time where a landlord cannot evict a person from their apartment for 105 days, so about 3 months. There is one exception that if the tenant is in violation of the lease for some reason other than not paying rent, then the landlord has 15 days where they can evict the client or the person. And also there's a requirement that landlords must provide notice, 15-day notices to tenants before they can be evicted. And this off-ramp is intended to drive people to the website, the state website. Minnesota received $700 million in federal funds that Congress passed earlier this year for those folks that have fallen behind on their rent. So this is intended to keep not only the tenant housed, but also the landlord whole. So that did come to an agreement at the end. Just would mention a couple things that didn't happen. There were 3 cost shifts that were proposed at one time in the Senate that we averted, which was good news. They dealt with disability waiver caps, freezing the Min Choices reassessment rate at a level, it was basically a block grant at the 2019 funding level. And also there was a suggestion that counties should pay a share for the placement of disabled individuals that were 18 to 27 years of age in certain settings. All of those proposals did not pass. One other thing that we did work on, and Crow Wing County was very active in, was the substance use disorder reform bill. This would have allowed us to bill MA, medical assistance, for substance use disorder pre-treatment coordination, and ultimately that did not get across the finish line this year. Was very included in the conference committee on the Senate side, but did not cross the finish line. Recreational cannabis, that was discussed in the House. I think there were 13 hearings that had a floor vote. Senate did not take it up, but there is certainly, you can see that there's some momentum for looking at that. They did pass a provision that modifies the medical cannabis program, and that allows for the raw form of cannabis to be used in that program, which is a much cheaper way, cheaper product, because it doesn't have the processing that's involved in creating either the oil or the pill form. That did pass. And with that, it saved the state almost $10 million per biennium by shifting to that form of medical cannabis. I think that's kind of the highlights, if you will. Again, it's Human Services, as you all know, is a big lift, and I just want to finish by referencing your staff. Kara Cherry, Tammy Lewick, both are very much involved in the MICA activities and represent not only Crow Wing County very well, but the state counties as a whole. And with that, I'd try to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? It's such a convoluted department that it's tough to come up with questions and know all the intricacies of the issues there, but thank you very much for all your work on that. That's a tough pull there. Not that the others aren't, trust me. But having worked for DHS, I know what a problem child they are.
Thank you.
Ms. Stark, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members. I'm Carly Stark, and I cover public safety for MICA. So I will start with, I think, one of the best news stories, which is the increase in the Community Corrections Act subsidy and county probation officer reimbursement. It includes $1.22 million increase per year. The bad news about that is that it's not ongoing funding, so in the next biennium, we will have to fight even harder for more money. But in addition to that, there is also language for a probation funding work group in which the Council of State Governments is coming in to collect public safety data from counties around the state to decide to help us evaluate whether we are getting the return on investment we need for our public safety dollars and help us figure out a way to have a more equitable funding system. I know Crow Wing specifically understands the problem with the DOC getting increases every year for their probation, while the counties get infrequent increases. So I am heavily involved in that work to try and make sure that whatever new system is developed, that county interests are part of that discussion and in the forefront of that discussion because of the majority of work done by county employees. So something that did not happen was the maintenance of the 95-cent 911 telecommunications fee. It did decrease to 80 cents. However, the Emergency Communication Networks, which is a department of the Department of Public Safety, they did double the amount of money that goes to public safety answering points. So that does affect county budgets, even though it is generally through the sheriff's department. There was no emergency management readiness grants. However, it did show up in one of the omnibus bills, which is farther than it got last biennium. And then there's $500,000 for local law enforcement agencies to purchase and maintain body cameras. Those will be grants to counties. I don't know exactly how far $500,000 is going to get, but that is something that some counties are interested in applying for. There's $500,000 each year for a 15% matching grant for court security updates. Now, they had a similar program a few years back, I think 2018, and a lot of counties took advantage of that funding to add metal detectors and x-ray machines and other court security that's necessary in courthouses. The last one is a neuropsychological exam requirement was passed as a feasibility study. So the bill originally was introduced, and a fiscal note for the same bill last year showed it would have cost counties $8 million per year. So we lobbied very hard to say you need to look at how this will actually work in real life and how to fund it. So the Senate introduced language to have that as a feasibility study, and it passed in that form so that we can, even if it's a good idea, see how to make it actually work once the legislation is passed, and that it's adequately funded with partnership with the state. So if there are any other questions, I would be happy to answer them.
I would just note, yesterday we were given a report that out of the 1.22 million, that Crow Wing County will get about $30,000. So I just want to be clear that that's not, we'd love to have 1.22 million come into our probation system, but it's significantly less than that. Still, we're thankful for it, but we'd like to see a lot more, and that'll be a big priority in the next session for us. So.
Yes, and I will just do a shout out to your director, Krista Jones. She is very active on the Minnesota Association of Community Corrections Act County Board, and has helped me advocate because I do understand that that is a big funding need, and even though it's good to get some money, the need is much higher.
Yes. So, and I know DOC is a tough department to work with too, and, trying to pull money out of their budget to go to, for the cost shifts that are direct or indirectly given to us as counties is not recognized by them or supported by them. They want to keep their dollars in their pot, and we take on more and more responsibility with them. So that's an unfair system in funding at this point. So thank you very much, Carly, for everything you do there. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Well, thank you for calling that out. We definitely see that CCA funding as one of the unfinished pieces. In the CCA program, I think there's an expectation in statute that counties should be have about 50% of the cost covered by the state, and it's somewhere more in the neighborhood of 25%-ish is what's covered rather than the 50%. So we will continue to work on that. We work closely, obviously, as it makes sense for MICA with other partner organizations and others across the board, but certainly on the next two areas, I will just breeze through and mostly let you read the general government and environment area. We did spend a little bit more. I spent some more time on environment because there were some real opportunities there this year to get some increased funding for counties. The one thing on this slide that I really want to point out, because it has been percolating for a couple of years, and that is with deputy registrars and licensing bureaus, there's a number of issues. There is now authorization for deputy registrars to set up kiosks, so 24/7 kiosks in shopping malls or someplace near by the office. And a key part of that was always at stake is it is the case that whatever deputy registrar's office sets those up gets to keep the transaction fees for that office. So that's an important part for counties. Unfortunately, counties that operate licensing centers and other deputy registrars are still experiencing increased costs related to the work that goes on as part of the MnDrive system, not the whole old MnLARS conversation, which that has been addressed, but there was just fundamentally some more work that gets done now at the local level, and the fees have never been adjusted to reflect that. There is, however, some study work that's now expected to bring data back to the legislature, so we're going to continue to work on that for fees. In environment, I'll just read through them. $700,000 annually more for county score grants. There's money for cleanup at landfills. There's money for replacing rural septic systems in 2 bills. Actually, there was money in both the environment bill and an annual base amount increase to the Ag Best Management Revolving Loan Program, which has been an important source for many things, but also available for septic system replacement. And then we also had followed closely long and periodic discussion about how solid waste, soil and water conservation districts are funded. There's been a number of proposals, and ultimately the legislature did provide another 2 years of funding for SWCDs from the Clean Water Fund, as opposed to a mortgage deed transaction fee that counties would have otherwise been required to put on, and some increased funding for invasive species. So just looking forward, there's a lot of studies that we're following now across really pretty much all of the policy areas. There's dozens more that aren't listed on here, but these are some of the ones that we know could be pretty impactful. The legislature at the state level still has about $1.2 billion of fiscal recovery funds that are left unallocated, and I know that will be something that the legislature preserved the right for itself to allocate those as opposed to the governor allocating them. So that will be an issue next legislative session. We are obviously, as mentioned, looking forward to a September special session, both for the frontline worker pay as well as a bonding bill, hopefully. And just say that we already know that we're headed into a pretty healthy state budget condition for next session. Reserves are full, and the biennium that just finished actually finished with north of $2 billion collected. So collected, not projected, above the February forecast, and that was not part of the budget deliberations. We're rebranding and launching as an association, a new website, mission value statement, some new logo design, which you see captured here, and so we're excited about that just as an association, and thank you again for your participation and membership. Any questions for me?
Questions? Commissioner
Mr.
Coyle?
Chair, I don't know that I have a question, just a comment. You know, I was in the legislature in the first year that I got elected or sworn in was 2003. And I just tried to look it up, but I couldn't find it. But I'm almost positive the budget in 2003, 2004 biennium was like $31 billion, give or take. Now it's $52 billion. You know, so anybody that says, geez, where's my paycheck going? Government's growing pretty darn fast. It's kind of spooky to me.
Not really sure what I can add to that, except
that was me taking a swipe at state government.
Commissioner,
I'm not there anymore, so I can't.
You and I, of course, worked together back in those days, and I was a nonpartisan staff for the Senate, for the legislature. It has grown. You know, I think obviously there's a lot of things that drive that up. Population is also a factor in it, and I think this in particular, you know, I didn't mention it at the beginning, but a really heavy focus this biennium on COVID relief. If you were to look at the money put into education, the money put into some of the other bills that we don't follow as closely at the counties, some of that could end up being one time.
And can I say something else? So, and I will say Steve is right. You know, I never, I have mixed emotions about earmarks, but I think actually earmarks have to be a part of the mix somehow, because there's projects that the public wants, but these bureaucrats that are, you let them make the decision. And, because I was on the bonding committee with Senator Langseth, and we'd go to every county and we'd look at these projects and see what they were all about and make a determination. Well, he kind of made the determination, but, you know, I got, when I was in there was lots of little projects that nobody would ever really care about. You know, a little, a community building down in Bolus, and I even got $50,000 for my little St. Matthias Park out here. I thought they'd name it the Senator Paul Coring Trail, but they never did. So, but I think there has to be a kind of a mix of earmarking. Otherwise, there's some projects that I think will never get in the mix. So, thanks.
And I'd like to conclude your presentation by thanking you and your staff for all the work you've done. I know Commissioner Franzine and I are on your meetings all the time. This has been a really stressful year for you folks, doing the virtual meetings, doing the telephone calls, and relationships are much easier to build face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball. So I appreciate all the efforts that you folks made. I know it was a struggle, but I think you, in the end, came out with a very good product for us, and I appreciate that very much and want you to know that. So thank you.
Good. Well, thank you all. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Chair.
And with that, we will move on to number 7 on our agenda, Community Services Personnel Actions. This has to do with a grant that we recently approved.
That is correct. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, June 8th, we came before you to let you know we were awarded a DHS Community Living Infrastructure Grant in the amount of $341,715. Since that time, we did come to personnel to discuss 2 additional positions as a part of this grant. On the 20th, we were here for a committee of the whole meeting where we shared data and information related to our sheltering program, as well as housing and homelessness issues within our community. At that time, Supervisor Bertram shared some stories related to the folks we had been serving. That included a single parent with a couple of kiddos that he wanted to keep in the school district and still work full-time, and so assisting him in finding housing, as well as a number of veterans, disabled, folks receiving Social Security, and those who were over 55. That was kind of surprising to us. We have the typical homeless person image in our minds, and so to have all of the different populations to serve we discovered was more of an issue than we had believed it to be at the time. So today we're asking for approval to post and hire for the 2 positions that we had initially asked for at the time of the grant acceptance. Would be a social worker and a case aide, fully funded by the grant. The grant is for 2 years, so to be clear to the staff, we're hiring that these are grant-funded positions, but we ask for your approval today to be able to post and hire.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, I would just say that I did ask to have this put as a separate agenda item because I didn't want it on the consent agenda. I am going to vote no on this. I'm really concerned about the grant. Yes, the grant's there now, but the grant, it kind of reminds me of going back to the Clinton years where there was 100,000 new cops. They'd provide the grant money goes away, and then the local taxpayers are on the hook. So I'm afraid in the future that this could be a cost to Crow Wing County, so I will be voting no on this.
And just to be clear, in our discussions previously, we talked about these hires will be noted that it's a 2-year position. If funding goes on, it could be longer. Or if the funding ends, that through attrition, they may be absorbed, otherwise they would be released.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what we're looking for today is to approve the addition of 1 social worker and 1 case aide within the Community Services Department to fulfill the requirements of the Community Living Infrastructure Grant.
I'd so move.
Motion by Commissioner Brecken,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hoag. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those not in favor say nay.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to number 8. First item, 8.1, is the City of Nisswa request to allow golf carts on county roads.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. The county adopted a golf cart ordinance in 2019, and the ordinance includes a process for cities and townships to allow golf cart use on county roads if they first adopt their own ordinance and then ask the county permission to allow that use on county roads within their own city and township. And so the city of Nisswa adopted their own ordinance and regulating the use of golf carts on city roads, and then they are asking to allow that golf cart use on county roads 13, 18, and 77 within the city of Nisswa. They presented to the Natural Resource Advisory Committee on July 7th, and the committee supported that request, and then so it's here before the board today. And Jenny Mack, City of Nisswa Administrator, is in attendance to answer any questions.
And before we get to that, the Highway Department, County Highway Department, I'm assuming had some input on this?
Yeah, I know they have concerns with the extra use up on that this would cause more uses, be it joggers, walkers, ATVs, and now, golf carts, bicycles. Just that extra use could cause safety concerns, the more that's added to those roads. But I know Rob's here. I don't know if he wants to elaborate, but.
Commissioner Coring?
Well, Mr. Chair, I can't remember, it was Rosemary and I don't know who else was there. Bill, were you there?
Yep.
Okay, so Tim Bray was there, and our great county engineer and staff, Tim weighed in. He has some concerns, and just like he did up in Breezy Point, he has some concerns here. Those concerns were expressed to the committee there, but the committee unanimously moved this forward as a recommendation to the county board. So I think the highway department, and I can understand, but side-by-sides, I think, it's kind of in the same spot as side-by-sides is to me, but I support this.
So, Ms. Max, do you have something you would like to give to us here? Thank
Good morning,
you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. I don't have anything additional. Ryan summarized our request very nicely. We are just looking to provide other methods of transportation for our residents and our visitors within our community. As you probably know, we're looking to build out our trail systems within the city as well. So just providing opportunities for, safe travel, throughout the city of Nisswa is important to us. And this is the first step to see how that goes. We have initiated what we call our golf cart pilot project, and staff within the city, we're observing at different points within the Nisswa community all summer long to see what that traffic looks like, not only with golf carts, but with pedestrians and bicyclists as well, just to see, where the really active areas are, and what they're doing and where they're going. So if we need to adjust, we will certainly do that. Certainly have parameters over appropriate crossings with the highway, because that's very important to maintain safety as well. And we have not included County Road 115 in our request, because we know even with the improvements coming to that road, the shoulders are very narrow, and that's just not going to be a good situation for golf carts in that area. So try to keep it to the roads that have the shoulders to help provide that buffer with the vehicles and then the golf carts as well. So happy to answer questions.
Where do you see most of the golf cart traffic coming from? and going to?
Most of the traffic at this point are within some of our residential neighborhoods that are adjacent to downtown Nisswa. And so they come, from their quieter residential streets and come downtown. We have designated golf cart parking in our downtown area for that purpose. And then we also see some traffic coming from the Grandview Lodge area. Not a ton at this point. It's pretty regulated within their resort and the golf course area, but we know that as they continue to build out, their lodging and also just being adjacent to the city of Lakeshore, that there's going to be some, overlap there. So those are kind of the two main areas right now.
So you do have some residential area west of Grandview that would potentially want to come to downtown Nisswa.
Yes.
What are the discussions around Lower Roy Lake Road and the Hazelwood Road to connect over to where you have the tunnel that comes up to the city center?
Yes. Yes, so we are, part of this is we are working through our Go Lake Trail grant project in partnership with City of Lakeshore to build that trail to help with the pedestrian users getting from Lakeshore, really from East Gull Lake all the way through to Nisswa, and keeping them on Lower Roy Lake Road and on Hazelwood Drive and really off of County 77 as much as we can. We feel like is a good thing to do. Even though the residential streets are busy, we feel we can build out, improving the roads a little bit with the trail, and there's room there to do that. And that would be an improvement over using more of County Road 77 to then get to downtown.
I think just personally, I've always had concerns about 77, whether it's up on your end of the lake or on the south end of the lake. The speed of traffic, the volume of traffic is a genuine concern, and I'm sure that was expressed by the county highway engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do still have concerns about 77 going across there, and I know they're going to want to get to the grocery store, they want to get to the gas station, they might want to get to the restaurants there. I do struggle with that, though, and, to your point, Commissioner, the width-wise, a golf cart and a side-by-side probably aren't much different. Speed-wise, I think there's a little difference in their ability, so a side-by-side's going to move along a little faster, and I don't know, you must have applied an age onto the permitting that you're going to have locally.
Yes,
for
absolutely.
the
You
golf
have to
cart.
have a driver's license or a permit with someone who has a license. So we meet all the criteria that the county ordinance has in place so that we will report all of that information to you as well. But yes, we want to maintain safety, and our police department is actively out there this summer educating everyone about what the new rules are and the requirements, and that's been going pretty well.
Mr. Chair, if I can, I think with the increase in housing developments that's going to go on in Nisswa, this aspect will be good. I think on County Road 77, with the future of a roundabout at the entrance of Grandview, we'll adjust the traffic flow and the speed on 77. I think that'll help. I did reach out to Breezy Point, and they had been in the range of about 400 registered golf carts. They're up to 615 now. They are doing things to educate their public. So I think that this is a mode of transportation that's going to continue to grow and expand in our area, and with the type of residents that we do have. So.
And as of right now, if I can, we've issued 35 permits. I wasn't quite sure what that number would look like, this summer, and it hasn't been too overwhelming. So I take that as a positive that hopefully we'll just see kind of a steady growth with this.
Okay, Rob, would you have anything to give to us? Well, I'm sure you do, but
Well, I'm glad to hear a few of you were at that NRAC committee, so you could hear the county engineer's comments also, but they were pretty similar to what we talked about when Breezy Point came forward a couple years ago, just our concern with the multimodal use and how many users there are on the edges of the roads. And one particular concern in this area is the crossing of 371 and how that's going to be accomplished safely. So that's kind of into the details, but yeah, we have a concern with the policy, same as we did in Breezy Point.
I think an ongoing concern, and I didn't bring this up earlier, but So, Ms. Max, this is for you. So like Breezy Point is a much more condensed community for the golf carts. When you look at Nisswa, and you're looking at all the way from the Cass County line on 77, down Highway 13, County Road 13, and as noted, crossing 371, that's a huge concern. I'm a road biker, so even for us slow movers to get across, it's a long stretch going across there. But so I have some concerns about that, but getting past that, the scope of your community is much larger than Breezy Point. And that's where I kind of get concerned about it, although you have some nice small neighborhoods, and it would make sense that they have the ability to use a golf cart to get to downtown Nisswa, but it's the scope of it that also raises concern for me, because pretty soon we just might as well open it up county-wide instead of having these community-by-community approaches. So that's my thought on that, but I appreciate what you're saying, and the group that was at the NRAC meeting, I appreciate that. So those are my concerns.
Certainly, understandable.
With that, I would move to approve the request by the City of Nisswa as outlined in the attached resolution, which we all saw, for the use of golf carts in the City of Nisswa.
Mr. Chair, I'd make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Brecken, second by Commissioner Coring.
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Not in favor, say nay. That motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 8.2, preliminary plat for the orchard.
All right. Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Just one item for planning and zoning here. The request we have before you is from the property owner of Trax LLC at 5418 Barbo Road, Brainerd, Minnesota 56401. This is a request to approve, table, or deny the preliminary plat for a conservation design for the orchard, consisting of 5 lots. 4 of those lots are going to be for residential dwelling units, so that's 2 duplexes, and then 1 lot for a common open space per the certificate of survey that was received. A little bit of background on this item. There was a conditional use permit for the duplexes that's required by our ordinance. Anytime we have duplexes it's not on a natural environment lake, but it's in the shoreline district that's off of a lake, of a natural environment lake. So that requires a conditional use permit as well for those duplexes. That was approved by the Planning Commission in April of 2021 with a number of conditions, including to clean up some junk and include a buffer in the area that's on that property. So we have some additional conditions that were approved beyond the plat for the conditional use permit. Then later, applicant came back for the preliminary plat here to put some legal lot lines on the conditional use permit itself, along with an association and things of that nature. So that's really, as you can see up on the screen, really what we're looking at is right off of Barbo Road, just coming in this private road, and then these 2 duplexes and the septic systems on the west side. It's pretty heavily wooded, surrounded on that particular road. There's some existing buildings on the lot that'll be taken down as well and cleaned up. In terms of any comments we received, well, first off, I should say at the July Planning Commission meeting, there was a unanimous recommendation for approval with a number of conditions that are in your packet as well. Our Highway Department did have some comments. Those are reflected in some conditions, concerns about that once a new access is constructed, the old one is removed, and that the right-of-way along Barbo Road is dedicated to the public. And of course, their comment that the road at this time doesn't meet all of the specifications for the Highway Department's needs. As far as other comments we received, we haven't received anything else. So with that, we'll be looking for a motion.
Any questions, concerns? Look for a motion then to approve the preliminary plat for the orchard.
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Coring. Second. Second by Commissioner Hoag. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those not in favor say nay. That motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jake. County Engineer, number 9, Carolyn Lane petition for improvements.
Good morning again. We have one agenda item today. That is, we received a petition to perform improvements on Carolyn Lane, which is a unorganized territory township road in the First Assessment District. So really, you're doing business as the unorganized town board for this one. And I put a lot of comments on the board action because I think this is the first time maybe a couple of the commissioners have seen one of these come through. So a little background, prior to 2014, we would accept township roads in the First Assessment District even if they weren't paved. That got changed in 2014, but there's still a handful of roads from prior to that time that exist that we've taken over. And when they were taken over, it was with the understanding if they would get paved in the future, it would be by assessment to the benefiting property owners. So on Carolyn Lane, a lead petitioner came forward and asked for the petition form, and that person takes it around the neighborhood, tries to get as many signatures as he can. For Carolyn Lane, we identified 22 parcels that would benefit from the paving. They're not all directly adjacent to Carolyn Lane, but they all need to use Carolyn Lane as their primary means of access. So, of the 22, the lead petitioner received signatures from 16, indicating their desire to move forward with paving and being assessed for the project, so 73%. In 2016, we updated our policy on how to go about this petition process, and basically any neighborhood that could get to 60% signatures on a petition, that would be brought to the county board for the county board to accept the petition, and then the county board has options at that point. They can either schedule a public assessment hearing where all the property owners for or against can come forward and speak to the county board and share their concerns. The county board could request more information before taking any action, or they could deny the petition and say the project's not moving forward. I put on the board item in the last 2 petitions like this that came forward. Those were in 2016. One was for Welton Road, one was for Shalisa Lane. Welton Road had about the same percentage of petitioner signing that Carolyn Lane does. That project moved forward, and the residents were assessed for the improvement. Shalisa Lane at the time only had 40%, and the board decided to deny the petition and stop the project. I'm available to answer any questions you may have, and before I forget, I know there's at least one person in the audience from Carolyn Lane area who may have some questions or comments if you're willing to entertain those.
All right, thank you, Rob. And I'm assuming you're the individual. I know all the rest of them in the room, so I assume you have some information for us.
Good morning, board members. I live at 20620 Carolyn Lane, which is, we access our property through this road. Little more history behind this property, and I don't know if this is the time or place. I'm asking that we go to an informational meeting, just so that all the people that did sign the petition can have a little more information of how this process works and or what the actual scope of the project is. We received some estimates cost of like $82,000, and the assessments were going to be roughly $4,000, divided equally among 23 property owners that access from that road. This property was developed in 2001. The plat was done. It was Ruskin's addition to Hole in the Day. There was 18 lots that were created for this property, or for this plat when they developed it. They've decided to include 23 lots, which all do access from this road. The road was never completed as drawn or as it was created and accepted as the plat. It comes down, makes an L, goes to the end where that blue line is, and then this map isn't quite accurate. I've got another plat that shows that 66-foot easement goes another 300 feet to the east, and then it continues a 33-foot easement to the outside boundary edge there. The 300 feet of the 66 easement was never built. And so there's 4 property owners off of that east side that there's currently an easement to get through there, but the road was never constructed by the developer. They maintained the road until they got 2/3, occupancy of the development, and then the developer turned it over to the county. The county accepted the road as it was built without it being 100% completed there. I'm, of course, one of the people that's on the end of the private road, and we don't have access to that main road, nor is there maintenance to it. The road was designated, again, it just wasn't built there. So, we'd be in favor of tarring, I'm not against tarring the road if in fact it came to our property line and we had access and the county would maintain it, that extra 300 feet. It's literally 300 feet the way it's drawn in the plat.
So that's the white line that we see there? Is that
Yep.
what you're saying?
And actually, in 2001, at the preliminary plat hearings, Dwayne Blank, the county engineer at the time, requested that the same amount of 66 feet that came down to this side should be considered to access these lots on that side. And they agreed to it, but it never got built. I've got a plat map that actually shows that easement, but the road doesn't exist, if you guys wanted to see that. This is just a picture of kind of the GIS or showing what the petitions were. Again, there's 23 people or 22, what did you say, Rob, 22 or 23 people?
22 parcels, 23 owners, because one is half owned by 2 people.
Okay.
So I think there's less owners than that because there's one owner that owns 3 lots that's considered in here, and there's another owner there's 2 more owners that own a lot and a half in here. So that number is probably parcel numbers, but not owners.
Right, 22 parcels, there's less owners because there are multiple lot owners.
Sure. So I guess my question is why the road never got built complete to the way it was designed, and then at some point the county took it over, the maintenance of it. The previous plat developer had to bring it up to county specs, get it turned over as a gravel road, which was fine. And again, I'm not against paving it, but the rest of it should be benefited. There was also some discussion that we were going to have an informational meeting in the neighborhood to kind of ask some of these questions that never really happened before this situation. So again, I'm just asking that we go to have another meeting that we can have most of the owners understand exactly what happened when this plat was done, and then what happened when the road was proposed to the county for the county to take it over for maintenance.
So it does seem like in the petition, Rob, and I'm kind of directing this towards you, that when you allocate the dollars, the 82,000 or whatever that number was, per lot, just not on the frontage footage, but just based on dividing by the number of lots, it does seem that this is not reasonable, in my estimation, for the lots that aren't directly benefiting. They're benefiting after they drive off the dirt road on something that was promised years ago that doesn't exist. So what would be do we have any idea what the cost would be if we were to develop? So then it would be like a T road down there, right?
That's the way it's drawn. You
Right.
want to see that?
No, I don't need to see that. I'm kind of wondering, if we had to go in and build that road,
It's like
Right.
300 feet of road.
okay,
To continue the 66 foot, and then it would go to that 33-foot easement as it shows in white.
right.
But that blue actually extends across that wider lot to the first 2 red lots. So that 66 feet goes to the corner, to the western line of those red lots, and then it goes 33 feet to the edge of the property there.
Yeah, I'll try to add a little more explanation. Some of these, this is the white line that's being talked about, or the 33-foot platted, and that was all at one time part of a platted road that
Sorry.
a platted road that went a long ways along the north side of North Long Lake. Some of it's been revoked over the years, some's been vacated. When the gentleman platted Carolyn Lane in this addition, he owned this lot, but he didn't own the rest of them out here. So the county highway department had him plat an extra 33 feet on the south side here, so it'd be 66 feet in what that developer controlled or owned at the time. The actual road that serves these 3 lots is built somewhere down in here. It's nowhere near.
Record that crosses,
Yeah.
crosses that lot right there, or who he was the original developer.
So the roadway itself is nowhere near where this plat is, the existing access road. And when the developer came forward in 2010 to petition for Carolyn Lane to become a town road, he petitioned just for what you see in blue. If he would have petitioned going east, he would have had to move that road to that 66-foot stretch and done the construction. I'm just assuming at the time that he petitioned for this, because that's what he built to the current standards, he didn't change this access, so he wasn't making it worse for anyone, but he specifically didn't petition for anything to the east of here. So anything east of the blue is not a town road at this point, even though there's some platted right-of-way there.
And he no longer is there?
No. I don't believe so.
Of course not.
So it kind of comes down to, he built the road to sell his lots.
Right.
And he didn't need to build that extra 300 feet into the woods. Where he had to, Mr. Blank obviously saw that, he needs 66 feet down to this end, it needs to be 66 feet down to that end, should have created a T. So it's created some other hardships for us, as far as, they brought cable down last year, they just brought it to the corner. So now we would have to privately pay to bring it back into our house, because it's private from there, the road doesn't exist. Natural gas, same thing, they brought it down to the corner, they wouldn't pay for it to come down back into there. So there was some mistakes made along the way, and again, I'm totally not against paving the road.
Right.
But if we're gonna pay for it to go in front of the neighbor's property, they should pay for it to, go where the road should be, where it should belong, and where the right of way was. Planning and zoning did their job, highway department did their job when they put this preliminary plat forward. It just never got executed, and it got missed when they petitioned to take it over. That should have been the time that they went back to the developer in 2010 and said, you need to finish the road as it was platted.
Right.
And now,
Commissioner Coring?
Mr. Chair, so just a comment, I think this is the perfect example of what we've been talking about, why plats going forward have to be up to the standards. It has to be, because otherwise the residents are going to be in the same predicament. And how many other ones are there that's like this? So that's my comment. And then my question to Rob is, okay, so what would it take to bring that? That would take some major construction to bring that other white part up to
300 feet.
300.
Correct, because
feet to where the
So you're-
66-foot easement is, or not even 200, maybe 200
I think
feet of the 66.
it's
and
about
then 33
250.
foot.
So what you're saying is you're okay with paving all the blue, but you live on the white road, so you say, hey, I want my road paved too. Well, I guess I can understand that, so.
To my property line, right? I mean, that's where the road, he got it snuck through.
The only thing, a question then is if that's a township road and it's being plowed, wouldn't there have to be like a turnaround or some way for the plow to turn around, Rob? Or
Yeah, good question. There is a cul-de-sac down on the end here.
There
It
is,
doesn't show
okay.
up on this map.
Okay.
But there is one that would be included in the paving. And you had brought up a couple other questions, I think, Chairman. When we send the petition out to the lead petitioner, we always offer, if you want a neighborhood meeting, we've done many of them in the past, we'll come out and sit right in the middle of the road and talk to all the neighbors. He didn't feel that was needed at the time. Maybe it is, hearing this other resident. And
I guess, Rob, in my opinion, I think that's a necessity, given that they're going to pay an equal amount for something that they aren't going to benefit from for 300 feet or 250 feet, whatever. I think their concerns are genuine and warranted. So I think that they should have been heard on that.
I think the other point you had brought up was, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Commissioner.
That's all right.
Guernsey.
I just have a question. how much less would it cost if you didn't do the white area? And if you don't do that area, then there's really only two who don't benefit, because the red part that goes down, you can get at it from the biggest portion of Caroline. But is that another way to solve this?
Well, the $82,000 estimate doesn't include anything on that white.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
Okay.
No, because that's basically about a 14-foot wide gravel driveway through the woods. It's, there'd be a
Okay.
lot of work.
So could you take the green and the red, the last ones that are on the southeast
East.
corner, off from the assessment and just charge the people who actually have a road going in front of their house?
I guess if you were gonna look at every one that didn't directly access Carolyn Lane, it'd be these two and this one,
Well, yeah, that one.
and there's two down here also that the pavement wouldn't go all the way to their driveways.
Well, that's not quite accurate, because the two on that end, the cul-de-sac does go all the way to their property line.
And that big one, is that more than one lot? Because it doesn't look
Yes.
like it from that.
The big red one you're talking about?
This is two lots, yes.
Yeah, but the big
Okay,
red
I
one
guess-
that
I guess I
goes
can
south is
see
also
that.
two
Yep.
lots.
Yep.
Okay,
I've got another question.
yeah.
Commissioner Coring, go ahead.
Rob, so 82,000, so that isn't assessed in 1 year. It's just assessed, I believe it's over.
It's over 5 years.
Okay.
5-year payback. The property owners have the ability to pay it back in year one to not accrue any interest charges.
Right. And it gets put right on their property taxes.
Right.
As an assessment.
Yep.
But
And
right
what
now,
would be the interest rate on that? Do you know?
It's 8%, so the 3,700 initial estimate, if you paid it over the full 5 years, you'd be paying about 4,700. We always encourage people, go get a bank loan for 2% and be done with it.
Right. I guess I'm still concerned about the fact that these folks don't get anything until they get out there on the bituminous there. And yet they're gonna pay that $3,700 and potentially interest, whether it's through a bank or through the 5-year program.
You know what, I got another question. I'm
Go ahead.
sorry about that. Rosemary, what's the name of that road that we tarred? It was, you got to go through Baxter. to
we
get-
did Welton.
Welton. So
Welton.
Rob, a question on Welton. If you remember when we did Welton, there was a couple of spurs off of there that were dirt roads, and those people said, no, I don't want my road. And then after we tarred Welton, then they wanted their roads tarred. But they didn't have their roads tarred, but did they pay for Welton too?
They did not, because we had 2 petitions come in at the same time, one for Welton and one for the spur that went off of Welton, which was Shalisa. So the first 2 property owners on Shalisa paid because they had accesses onto Welton.
Okay.
I was going to get back to another question you had, Mr. Chair, on should larger size parcels pay more, or should it be per foot? That always comes up on these. The one that usually comes up when we have a neighborhood meeting is why should the person with a driveway, 50 feet from County Road 115 pay as much as the person that gets to drive 1,500 feet on it? We always start out with a per parcel assessment. If the lead petitioner or the neighborhood comes up with another idea, we're open to it. It's not set in stone, but we didn't hear anything back differently on this one.
So would that be a product, though, of not having that community meeting?
Possibly.
Right.
Yeah, the lead petitioner sent an email that said that he was gonna request for the community meeting, and when I think he kind of heard rumblings of some opposition to it, it never happened.
But opposition isn't always opposition in terms of not doing the project.
Correct.
It's just coming up
Yeah.
with alternative ways of doing it or financing it.
Like, let's think about this logically. Let's finish the road where it was supposed to go, where it got missed on the plat. It got missed when they turned the road over. And then, I mean, you wouldn't tar a road and then come in and add on to it. That just doesn't make any fiscal sense, right? So now's the time. It's been missed 3 times: preliminary plat, final plat, road turned over to the county. like, now's the time to at least address this issue. Otherwise, it's gonna be brought down to the four property owners back there are gonna pay whatever it might be to extend that road where it needs to be in the public road right of way that was delineated for that, instead of the 22 properties that are gonna pay to tar the road. So if you were to take, let's say it's $50,000, I have a hard time thinking it's $50,000 to extend the road to county specs 200 feet, 250 feet, you know? So if it's $50,000 and it increases the property to $132,000 for the entire project to extend that road, the $82,000 to pave it and everything else. So now we're splitting it amongst 23 parcels rather than 4.
Go ahead, Commissioner Coring.
The only thing is, with your logic is it's actually, there's more to it than you think, because we'd have to come in and survey. That'd be charged to you. They'd have to bring in earth-moving equipment. They'd have to move that road over where it was supposed to be. It actually, I think, would be a much larger expense than you really realize. And then, instead of the project being 82,000, it could be 100,000. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, in essence, you know, I could go either way on this one, you know, but I think that you're kind of if you're saying, I gotta have this, you're in essence kind of scuttling the whole project, really, in a way.
So I think what we have the options to do here is, you know, we can approve, we can deny, or we can table this. And my personal view, and I kind of defer to Commissioner Franzine since that's in your district.
In Bill's.
This one's in Bill's. But I would like to see us table it and then have that meeting and then talk about the additional costs that,
Yes.
you know, that are potential. And that could influence everybody's decision on what to do here, or any other alternatives that might come up at one of those community meetings.
And Mr. Chair, I think we need to hear from the residents that are there who it affects.
Well, I think we are, in a way, because there's a petition and they've signed them. They kind of have weighed in.
Right, exactly.
Mr. Chair, I think, though, if it's not up to the county to decide whether we're going to pave, you know, all of it or the part that they've petitioned for. And I do believe that there may be people who change their mind when it goes from 82 to 162 or whatever. So I think that the public meeting is necessary.
Okay, so I guess I would look for a motion then. We have those 3 options available to us.
Make a motion to table this, not to date certain, and then I believe we should, all 5 of us should go out there and have a meeting and have more information from the highway department on what the cost would be to move that road over and get it ready where it's supposed to be and the tarring of it, so.
So you're directing staff then to set a meeting
Right.
with the neighborhood? so
In
that-
my tabling motion.
Right, so that so all 5 commissioners are invited to that meeting,
And it could be right there on the road. Does that make sense?
if it's not raining.
Yeah.
If I could just add one thing, you know, I don't think the portion going off to the east or that acts as a driveway was technically missed. It was outside of a lot of what the developer's property had control over. He platted that extra 33 feet on land he owned, so someone in the future could move it to where it belonged. But I don't think it was his or the county's responsibility to move her entire driveway up to something that was platted, and it existed before this development came in, the Carolyn Lane development. So-
Okay. So we have a motion?
I would
Do have a
second.
Second by Commissioner Brecken. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those not in favor say nay. That motion passes, so
Okay.
we'll table it, and we'll have a meeting out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, remember the next time we have meetings on Tool Road or Peace Road or some of those roads, I want all 5 of us out there, not just me. Yeah.
County Sheriff.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, nothing at this time unless you have any questions.
Questions for the sheriff?
Nope.
Seeing none, you're off the hook. County Attorney. Mr. Ryan.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody today?
Good. Doing good, Don.
I don't have anything either unless someone has questions of me.
Any questions for the county attorney? I guess not, Don. You're okay to go back to work.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senior management team report. Gary.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. 2 items today. The first one, we had a senior management team meeting yesterday. The majority of that meeting revolved around the 2022 budget and how the departments are, preparing for an August 12th budget committee meeting with you guys. That was the majority of it. We also discussed a KPI scan with the continuous improvement team. So our key performance indicators, are they still relevant? And are there any that maybe should be that are not maybe being accounted for or tracked? These are things that departments are held accountable to meet the goals of our mission, vision, values set forth by the commissioners. And then another big thing we talked about, which was pretty exciting, is this county's commitment to mental health. We had a great discussion with critical incident and trauma care, with which our sheriff's office has led the way with, when staff come across all kinds of some bad stuff out there, we'll just say, and can that be modeled in other departments? And so with the lead from our HR team, starting to identify how many and who could be getting some special training so we could have some more peer-to-peer coaching and discussion with folks throughout the county, which I think is a great movement with our commitment to our mental health of our employees. So that's a really cool thing. That's the big notes from the SMT meeting yesterday. Any questions for me or other SMT members?
Questions for Gary? With that?
Okay, with that, the second thing we have to bring forward is a request for board action to sign a purchase agreement with the city of Baxter. This property is located in where the Camp Panasik currently sits, over on Whipple Lake in city of Baxter. The purchase agreement it's basically $360,000 is what they're going to pay for the land. They've already paid, in essence, $12,000 and some change for some right-of-way in 2020. So the purchase agreement total would be $347,471. And we had set that up on 10 equal installments of $34,000 some change a year over year. Any questions on that for me?
8% interest on that, or?
No interest.
No interest.
I believe it's 0 interest for Baxter.
That was.
Yeah, yeah.
Gary, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Gary, so what fund would that go into? Would that go in our parks fund? Or does that go in a restricted fund, or?
I do believe the board has flexibility to choose where they would want to put that money.
Okay.
It is owned outright as county fee land, so that gives you a little more flexibility.
Okay. So I would look for a motion to approve the sale to the city of Baxter.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Franzine makes the motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Coring. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those not in favor say nay. That motion passes. Thank you, Gary. All right, other business. I have a couple things. Last meeting, I forgot to read a proclamation for the Staff Appreciation Day, which the governor did proclaim, but I would like to proclaim one from us as the board. So I'd like to read that. Whereas county employees serve as the cornerstone of our community, dedicating their time, skills, and expertise for the benefit of their neighbors, and whereas the work of county employees is essential and often in person, and whereas the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted county service, delivery, and program administration, creating uncertainty for employees and citizens on accessing essential services, and whereas county employees continued providing vital community services in 2020, showing exemplary leadership by taking personal risks assuming new duties and responsibilities, and innovating new modes of service delivery. And whereas through their dedication to county work and commitment to public service, county employees kept our county open and our community safer, healthier, and productive. And whereas the governor has proclaimed Tuesday, July 27, 2021 as County Staff Appreciation Day, now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of Crow Wing County, Minnesota, in conjunction with the governor's proclamation, proclaims Tuesday, July 27, 2021 as Crow Wing County Staff Appreciation Day. And with that, I would look for a motion to approve.
Would move that motion to adopt the proclamation.
Commissioner Coring makes the motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Franzine. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those not in favor say nay. Thank you very much for everyone for that. I have two more small items. First of all, the county fair is next week. Begins August 3rd through the 7th. Please get out there and attend that. We're looking for a big audience this year. And the second thing is Commissioner Coring wanted me to note that today is National Bagpipe Day. So,
On the national calendar.
on the national calendar. So with that, I would look for a motion to
Anything for
adjourn.
his bag day.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Coring,
Second.
second by Commissioner Franzine. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Not in favor, say nay.